Wait a minute. Uh-oh.
Professional wrestlers make for some of the funniest trolls in the world. Proof of this has always existed, with a notable example being John Cena's heel turn on the post-WrestleMania 29 Raw, and it is especially prevalent in today's social media age. All it takes is a few seconds of typing, and a wrestler can send fans into hysterics. Just for evidence, take a glimpse at Drew McIntyre's timeline on X. It's just pure trolling. Offline, however, all it takes is a wrestler dressing up as a rival colleague to send the audience reeling. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 11 of the biggest WWE wrestler troll moves ever. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Number 11, the phenomenal one, Gunther? Our first troll job deserving of praise is also the most recent, as Gunther, fresh off retiring AJ Styles at the 2026 Rumble, mocked the phenomenal one's iconic ring entrance on the following Raw. Though it had been reported ahead of time by PW Insider that AJ was not scheduled for the show, there remained hope that he would at least appear one final time to deliver a farewell speech a la Shawn Michaels in 2010. That's what fans were anticipating when the opening bells of his theme music bellowed out, but their euphoria quickly turned sour when Gunther ran out to the stage instead. He paused before raising his arms in time with the music and pyro before AJ's music turned into Gunther's. The troll job having garnered the exact reaction that WWE was looking for. Gunther has never exactly suffered at any point throughout his 7-year stay with WWE, but he needed to add another layer to his character to prevent fans from growing bored of his same old "the mat is sacred" stick. Becoming the career killer was the exact move he needed, allowing him to display just the right level of assholeness. Number 10, the Heartbreak Kid Damian Sandow? Before he found solace as the Miz's stunt double Damian Mizdow, Damian Sandow took his inspirations from elsewhere, mimicking a different wrestler or celebrity every week as Charlie Huss had done before him, and even The Big Show. Between April and August of 2014, the former Mr. Money in the Bank embraced life as Abraham Lincoln, Sherlock Holmes, Magneto, Bruce Springsteen, and even then WWE Chairman Vince McMahon. But his most notable character ripoff was when he embraced his inner Heartbreak Kid. Dressing as Shawn Michaels the civilian rather than Shawn Michaels the wrestler, Sandow strode out in his best straw cowboy hat and snakeskin waistcoat to confront Bret Hart, who he'd also dressed up as. The segment concluded with him ending up in the sharpshooter obviously, and by next week, Damian Sandow had given up his career moonlighting as a Shawn Michaels doppelganger to become a Sonic worker. As was the case when Charlie Huss was doing it in the late noughties, the crowd erupted when Shawn Michaels' music hit, but they shouldn't have. This was bizarrely on an episode of Main Event, so an appearance from Mr. WrestleMania was as likely as Bret Hart finally forgiving Goldberg. That ain't never happening. Number 9, Dolph Ziggler becomes the dead man. There's no longer such a thing as originality in pro wrestling, which is why in 2017, Dolph Ziggler ripped off Damian Sandow's rip-off of Charlie Huss's gimmick, which also ripped off The Big Show. John Cena, Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels, and most strangely Naomi were among those to feel the wrath of Dolph Ziggler's new character, which was supposedly to highlight that work rate matters more than a flashy entrance. In other words, according to Ziggler, Randy Savage and Shawn Michaels, two of the greatest in-ring workers ever, only got over because of how they walked to the ring. Now let's be fair, it was a gimmick designed to fail, but not before Ziggler pulled off his best impersonation of The Undertaker. Mimicking the dead man on the September 26, 2017 episode of SmackDown, Dolph rocked up in full Undertaker apparel. And while the first sound of the gong created a rush of excitement, it quickly turned to whining once it was apparent that Mark Calloway was nowhere to be seen. Fans were tremendously bored by Dolph Ziggler in this area, and this gimmick was doing him probably no favors, but at least his caricature of The Undertaker served its purpose. It was a good Undertaker. Number 8, it's The Big Show. Preceding Dolph Ziggler, Damian Sandow, and even Charlie Huss in the gimmick of Rip-Off Club was The Big Show, whose escapades at parodying those who came before him began just weeks after he headlined WrestleMania 2000. Like Ziggler, Sandow, and Huss showed dressed up as legendary wrestlers such as Hulk Hogan, but the majority of his focus was fixated on mocking lower-level performers as he transformed into Val Venus as the Big Show Boski, Rikishi as Shokishi, the Berserker as Shonen the Barbarian. Now, he would take a break from dressing up as his colleagues when he was sent back to developmental, but come 2001, the world's largest athlete pulled off his most demeaning parody yet. Dressing up as Diamond Dallas Page at the height of his bleak motivational speaker character, The Big Show turned full DDP copycat, complete with an ill-fitting blonde wig and hilariously huge turkey teeth before he delivered a monotonous rendition of a standard Page promo from the time. The live crowd got a good laugh out of the segment, which is exactly what segments such as this are supposed to do. They're not supposed to be taken seriously. And neither was DDP in WWE. Number 7, Stone Cold Kevin Owens. The return of Stone Cold Steve Austin was one of the biggest selling points for WrestleMania 38. WWE did right by Austin by keeping him off all programming until Mania itself, ensuring a gargantuan pop on the night. This didn't stop WWE from trolling its audience, however, as a sound of glass shattering kicked off Raw's March 22, 2022 episode. But instead of the Texas Rattlesnake though, out walked Kevin Owens, Austin's WrestleMania 38 rival. Owens pulled off the Stone Cold imitation flawlessly, nailing every mannerism, from Austin's cocky ring walk to his turnbuckle pose, before listing off as many catchphrases as the time would permit. Ending the segment, KO purposefully fumbled catching the cans of beer that were tossed his way before stunning a production worker for his troubles. The icing on the cake was that this Raw emanated from Chicago, a demographic that can get notoriously ruthless when things don't go the way they want. Hearing the glass shatter and getting Kevin Owens, not Stone Cold Steve Austin, made Owens the most hated man in town, in turn making the segment a roaring success. Number 6. The Miz's history of impersonations. Unlike the other repeat offenders we've discussed, The Miz's long history of impersonating past and present colleagues saw him parody wrestlers he was feuding with at the time, rather than just playing dress-up as to who was relevant for that week. Undoubtedly, his best impersonation was his parody of The Rock in 2011. Saving John Cena from Alberto Del Rio and Brodus Clay beatdown ahead of WrestleMania 27, The Miz looked every bit like the Great One until he removed his sunglasses, as he would have gotten away with it had Michael Cole, his #1 fan at the time, not started to hysterically laugh the minute he saw The Miz. Subsequent parodies have seen the A-lister don the jorts as John Cena and the leather waistcoat as LA Knight, both of which were also convincing enough to draw seismic reactions until fans saw a close-up of his face. Number 5. The fake Bret Hart. Although the topic of the Montreal Screwjob has been done to death on the YouTube platform, it still leaves a sour taste in the mouths of many, particularly because, for a while, Vince McMahon just couldn't let it go. Much like his victory against WCW in the Monday Night Wars, McMahon seized every opportunity to poke the beast, continuing to mock Bret Hart long after he jumped ship to Atlanta, and that included the immediate aftermath of Survivor Series 97. While the night after the fateful pay-per-view saw Vince utter his infamous "Bret screwed Bret" line, he handed the reins over to DX 2 weeks later. Shawn Michaels, the very man who defeated Hart in the infamous match, claimed to introduce the Hitman to put an end to the controversy. But instead, a little person wearing a degrading Bret Hart mask appeared, failing to put much of a fight against the obviously larger Michaels and Triple H. Although the segment could have done without the involvement of Jim Neidhart, this was a masterstroke in trolling from the WWF, brilliantly addressing the controversy without having to deliver the impossible return of Bret Hart. Number 4. WWE hypes up Jinder Mahal. With notorious troll bastard Triple H sitting at the head of the table in WWE, the company's troll jobs have become considerably more overt, though nothing will ever compare to the roller coaster of emotions felt by fans who tuned into the 1st January 2024 episode of Raw. Promoting the return of a former WWE champion left everyone anticipating The Rock, so when Jinder Mahal walked out instead, the drop in excitement was felt worldwide. There were audible signs and groans as Mahal strutted out in full confidence. It absolutely killed the audience excitement, but the adrenaline rushed again when The Rock finally entered, enhancing WWE's latest trolling of the audience to levels never seen before. Despite being booked specifically to knock the vibe, Jinder Mahal remained in good spirits about the ordeal, and he got a World Heavyweight Championship main event match against Seth Rollins later in the month, so it wasn't all bad news, unless you were Seth Rollins' knee. Number 3. Seth Rollins shields himself. Inspired ring gears are nothing new in the modern age of pro wrestling, movies, comics, and video games often being drawn upon by WWE superstars when designing their gear, but no one is better at telling a masterful story through their ring gear than Seth Rollins. Throughout his WWE tenure, Seth has drawn inspiration not only from pop culture, but from his catalogue of matches. At Crown Jewel 2025, where he was booked against Cody Rhodes, Rollins' tights pulled together the pair's previous matches from 2022, with 3 patches sewn into his zebra print tights to represent each contest, including the mocking polka dot ensemble that parodied Dusty Rhodes, Cody's late father. 3 years earlier, however, at the 2022 Royal Rumble, Seth brilliantly trolled the audience and, judging by his reaction, Roman Reigns himself. Challenging the Tribal Chief for the undisputed title, Rollins played on their pair's history, entering through the crowd to the Shield's old theme music while decked out in his riot-like attire. Reigns' facial reaction was the icing on the cake though. He looked as though he legitimately had no clue of Seth's intentions, which is hopefully true. Number 2. CM Punk is the third Hardy Boy. On an episode of WWE Break It Down released in December 2025, CM Punk stated that he always aims to habitually step over the line during his storylines. And in 2009, he did precisely that when he mocked Jeff Hardy during their acclaimed feud. Mocking Jeff Hardy's signature entrance on the summer 2009 SmackDown, CM Punk looked like the spitting image of the charismatic enigma. His naturally long hair helped mask his true self, as did the Jeff Hardy-style face paint, while the armbands managed to cover up his tattoos. Entrance-wise, CM Punk absolutely nailed Hardy's mannerisms. It wasn't until much later into the segment that fans realized they had been duped. WWE always went too far with Jeff Hardy's single storylines, typically referencing his historical substance abuse issues. While Punk did touch on those later in the feud, it's his imitation of Jeff that many look as the defining step over the line during their acclaimed rivalry rather than the cheap heat. And number 1, Mark Henry's salmon jacket. Now, the concept of a wrestler teasing their retirement before turning it into a storyline is absolutely nothing new, but nobody did it better than Mark Henry did in 2013. He cast doubt over his future in the ring through social media before, but on Raw's June 17, 2013 episode, he confirmed he was hanging up his boots for good in a genuinely emotional speech. John Cena, the WWE champion at the time, joined a tearful Henry, which shouldn't have cast doubt over the legitimacy of Henry's retirement. The former World Heavyweight Champion continued, thanking his family, friends, and fans as he went to hug Cena, and then he dropped him with the World's Strongest Slam, ending a career-defining moment by standing tall with the WWE title. Though his career had peaked 2 years earlier with his Hall of Pain gimmick, this could have been the makings of another groundbreaking run for Mark Henry. But sadly, his quest to topple John Cena fell short at Money in the Bank. This, however, was reportedly at Mark Henry's own request. The story goes that he legitimately was considering retirement before Vince McMahon talked him into making a story out of it. He mentioned, "A lot of people were mad at the WWE. I did not take the opportunity to win the title and to run with it. At the same time, I was injured, and I told him, I was like, look man, I really did want to retire, and Vince McMahon talked me out of retiring. He's like, let's just keep it going, and then you retire and let it be a real retirement. I want you to really get into it." And that's what happened. Anytime a WWE superstar dons a pastel-like jacket, you know we're in for a ride. But there you have it, folks. 11 of the biggest WWE troll moves ever. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.